Hey there, how's it going? I get asked a lot about how I deal with difficulties when making games. Now this is a huge topic if you break it down, and look at what could be a difficulty from one person to the next. So I'm going to go over a few of the common challenges that I face and my approaches to pushing past them. If I don't cover something that you would like to know about, please leave it in the comments. If enough people like this video, I may do another one in the future and I'll pull challenges from below. No game is made without difficulties, but if you just want to make a game and not worry about a lot of the hassles, check out the sponsor of this video, Core. Core is the new free game creation platform that lets you build, publish, and play games. It's an amazing platform to quickly get started creating and designing your own games, especially if you want to create a 3D multiplayer game. Pick a framework and start building your own games right away, using thousands of free high-quality music, sound, and art assets, all with no coding required. But if you really want to dig into it, Core lets you create your own game logic using Lua. You can build games from scratch or remix and reimagine content shared by other creators. And when it's time to publish, your game will go live on the Core platform with the click of a button. Right now, Core is partnering with Dungeons & Dragons to host the Dungeon Design Contest. If you've ever had a great dungeon design idea, now's the time to show it off in this fantasy-themed dungeon building contest with over $20,000 in prizes. Core is completely free, so be sure to check it out by clicking on the link in the description to get started today. Okay, let's dig into my most common challenges. I struggle a lot with motivation. With the amount of things that I make, it may not seem like it, but sometimes working on a project can just feel like pulling teeth. I can't even count the number of nights that I open up a project and I just sit and stare at it. Then I close it deciding that I don't want to work on it tonight and I open another one, only to repeat this process until I finally go to sleep frustrated with myself that I didn't actually make any progress that night. This happens to me quite often, so I don't want to sound like I have a magic answer. But for me, nothing gets me more motivated than a deadline. Needing to have something done by a certain time or date really kicks me into gear. Hence the reason why I like game jams and dev challenges so much. One word of warning here, make your deadlines reasonable and possible. A deadline of finish the game by Friday is not a great deadline outside of a game jam. Ideally, that finished game should be broken down into something like finish level designs by Wednesday, finish menu designs by Thursday, finish testing and exporting by Friday. If you're working on a non-game jam game, I would recommend not doing this all in 3 days, obviously. Set small, achievable goals and stick to them. For me, the lack of motivation really starts when I feel that there's too much to do and I don't even know where to start. The longer this feeling goes on, the more imposing the task I need to do becomes, and the more I'm gonna procrastinate it. But setting up small, short goals and completing them will help you feel like you're making more progress, which I find keeps me interested and enthusiastic about working on a project. The hard truth is motivation is not something that has a quick fix. It's about building a habit which takes time, and you'll probably struggle along the way. The key is to keep trying, because if you don't try, you'll never get it no matter what. Real talk, I'm half writing this for myself as well. I've overloaded my schedule quite a bit recently, and I've been falling into the trap of thinking that I need to do everything all at once, which of course is impossible. If you have a hard time like this, like I do, it can also help to bring in a friend that can assist you in setting up a realistic timeline. I get a lot of help from my wife, who doesn't do any game dev, but is able to be a second set of eyes to catch unrealistic plans and expectations. Another person can also be great for accountability. Find another game dev that's in the same boat and make a plan to share progress goals with one another. Even if you make games solo, you really shouldn't make them in a vacuum. Another big challenge that I get asked about is creative blocks and how to come up with ideas. I've had people say to me that they aren't creative, which I don't agree with at all. We're all creative, it just comes more easily to some than others. I consider myself a pretty creative person, but if you task me to make something and tell me I can do whatever I want, I'm going to sit and stare at a blank project forever. There are just too many options that I'm never going to be able to start. I love the term analysis paralysis because it perfectly describes what happens to me. I don't like to do something without really thinking about it. So if I can do anything, well, now I have to think about everything before I can start. Restrictions breed creativity. I think this is one of the reasons why game jams have become so popular over the last few years. They start you off with something that can put an idea in your head. I believe humans have a need to create and solve problems, so having a restriction on the creative process does double duty, allowing us to make something while solving the problem of doing so based on rules. People joked in the comments of my character creation video that I had to add extra challenges and turn it into a mini game jam. And basically, yeah, that's how I make mostly everything. If I have a task, I give myself an extra little bit of restriction to motivate me that little bit extra. So if you're having trouble with creative blocks, try adding some restrictions and see what you can come up with. And the last challenge I'll talk about in this video is just not feeling good enough. I don't know about you, but I have imposter syndrome, something fierce. I think that pretty much everything I make is terrible and no one will like it. I'm in a lucky enough position now that I have a lot of people actually telling me that they like the work that I make, which is helpful, but it's still a real struggle sometimes to post work publicly that I don't think is perfect. And of course, nothing is ever perfect. Unfortunately, the only thing that I've found to make this easier isn't easy at all. It involves forcing yourself to share your work, and accepting that things may be wrong. In my How I Got Started in Game Dev video, I mentioned that I think the worst thing that I did for myself when beginning making games was not showing anyone what I was doing. I was embarrassed that everything I was making was so simple and still didn't really work all that well. I spent a year alone trying to learn how to do everything better and completely afraid to post any of my work online. Then I finally forced myself to join an online game dev community and go to a game dev meetup. I made a very clear and conscious decision that I needed to stop working on this hobby completely by myself. I'm an introvert with high anxiety, so it was really hard for me to get myself to join a Discord server and go to an actual meetup. Like, really hard. And it remained hard for a good while. But for me at least, the stress and anxiety that comes from these types of situations is lessened with familiarity. So the more I do it, the more I become comfortable. And the less anxiety I have because I more clearly know what to expect. The hard truth was I just had to try, share what I was making, and keep doing it until it felt normal. Luckily, the indie game dev community is one of the most accepting communities I've ever been part of. People that will be rude or mean about your work are more of an exception than the rule. I won't lie and say that they aren't out there, because unfortunately they are. But that's just part of life, and accepting that not everyone will like what you make and being okay with that is a skill that takes practice. So for whatever hobby you're doing, find a community of people that are doing the same things to be part of, whether it's online, in person, or with friends. Of course, for in-person stuff, make sure it's safe to do so. Share your work as much as you can and get comfortable listening to feedback. It gets easier and easier the more you do it. So those are my takes on some of the most common difficulties that I face and how I try to push through them. Again, this may not work for everybody, but hopefully it's a good starting point if you're running into similar challenges. I hope you found this helpful, or at least a little bit interesting. Thank you all very much for watching. I'd like to give an extra special shout out to my patrons, especially Abishan, Adam Edwards, David Scott, Elric, Nightfall, MLK, Nazar Salim, Ragnabro, Scott Hansen, Straight Up Gruntled, and Soapino. You're all awesome people, and I really truly appreciate the support. And one final thank you to the sponsor of this video, Core. Don't forget to check it out. It's completely free. Just click the link in the description. If you'd like to play any of my games, you can visit vimlark.itch.io. To get in contact with me, you can stop by my Twitch stream, where I'm always doing something related to game dev, pixel art, or game jams. Message me on Twitter, or join the Discord with a lot of other really cool people. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll talk with you next time. Have a good one. Later.